Well, it's clear that the shortage in the workforce has started to constrain our future economic growth. So you know that the House DFL caucus is really invested in doing those things that will improve Minnesotans' quality of life. And I think after seeing the budget forecast, we'll be doubling down on policies that are important to keep Minnesotans in the workforce, like improving childcare access, paid family leave, earned safe and sick time. We have a very high labor force participation in Minnesota, but we have to do all those things that we can to make that labor participation rate even higher. So we'll be focused in on that. We'll also be focused in on investing on those things that keep our workforce strong. Higher education, K-12.
We also have a leader who's not feeling well.
A lot of germs.
There's a lot of germs. This economic forecast and budget forecast is not about numbers. It is about the people of Minnesota, their jobs, their families, and our future together. We know that our economy is continuing a pattern of growth, but the rate of growth is slowing. It is slowing because we have fewer workers able to enter the workforce. We don't have enough people moving into Minnesota to make up for that shortfall, and we are going to be in a period of slower growth if we do not invest in workforce, if we do not attract immigrants and migrants into Minnesota from other states, if we don't make a higher education system that prepares workers for that workforce, and if we don't have the kind of family economic security measures that keep people attached to the workforce, things like paid family and medical leave, which allow people to care for their families and continue working. We believe very strongly that investing in the people of Minnesota, making them productive and making sure that everybody has a share of the economic benefits that our economy produces is the best way to keep people working, keep families secure, and make sure that we have a brighter future. And while we are doing this, we have to look out for the state budget, which looks increasingly dire in future years. We are looking at operating deficits into the future unless we address revenue and spending. And with an aging population, the need to take care of people as they get older, a rising workforce that requires more in schools because we have more people in poverty, we need to invest more in education from zero through college. And so this is not a time for us to backtrack on investment in the people of Minnesota. It's a time for us to go forward. And that is why we are very much aligned with Governor Walz's proposals on revenue and spending in this coming budget cycle, and we look forward to working very closely with him to enacting his budget this year.
Well, I'll make just a brief comment. When we had the November forecast, I emphasized at a meeting just like this about our need for more workers. And we have an aging workforce, and we're going to have to focus on those investments that you've heard from both the Speaker and Majority Leader about where we target those investments. Education, job training, to begin to offset the need for a quality or an improved workforce. We have a quality workforce, but we have an aging workforce that we have to be cognizant of. I do want to mention that we are well prepared to move forward. The Speaker and I and others have been meeting regularly in terms of developing the state budget. And now that we have the forecast, we'll be ready to move forward in the next couple of weeks, setting the budget targets for the various fiscal committees. And I think we'll be looking very closely at the proposals that Governor Walz has made. I, for one, think he's got the right priorities, and they match the priorities of the DFL caucus in the Minnesota House.
So your inflation worries from senators are still there. It looks as though maybe we're at an even point as far as what is in the surplus and what is available. Can you get by with just a flatline budget that now has enough money to cover inflation? Or, as you guys seem to be saying, you think there should be some increases in both revenue and spending?
Well, we need to make some investments because if you look in the out years, we have a pretty large projected deficit. So we have to ask ourselves as state lawmakers, what are the things that we can do in this biennium to ensure that we don't have a $2.5 billion deficit in the next biennium? And it is just not sustainable for us to continue to provide the services that we currently provide to Minnesotans at the level of revenue that we're currently bringing in. So unless we plan to cut education or cut healthcare, we have to look at the revenue side of the equation in the next 2 years. We also have to look at what can we do to stimulate economic growth. What we can do to stimulate economic growth is twofold. We can get people working. There are people on the sidelines who will get in if they have the opportunity to have paid family leave, earn safe and sick time, more childcare subsidies to help, in particular, women fully participate in the workforce. But also we need to invest in Minnesota's hard infrastructure. This is a time to go big on a bonding bill. This is a time to go big on transportation investments and create those jobs. We're not like the federal government, so we can't deficit spend with a tax bill that's not paid for. But we do have low debt per capita compared to the rest of the country. So we certainly could invest in a very sizable bonding bill and get a lot more people working. Well, I think $3 billion would be about the right number, but my understanding is we're looking at maybe a maximum from the administration standpoint of $1.5 billion. I don't think it's a time to go small. If you look at Minnesota compared to the rest of the country, our debt per capita, we almost have half as much debt per capita as Wisconsin. So it would be a very responsible investment for us, especially when you look at the rate of inflation, construction inflation, and the rate of interest. It's still a good deal for us to borrow and build.
Votes for a bonding bill, if I can follow up on the bonding bill, and it's time to go big on that. Are you working on getting votes? How is that going on the other side of the aisle?
Well, we have 49 billion other problems to solve first before we get to the bonding bill conversation. I think you're familiar with that the bonding bill is usually the last piece of the puzzle that comes together. There are a substantial number of Republican bonding requests that have been put in, and Chair Mary Murphy assures me that there is a large appetite on the Republican side of the aisle for bonding.
We'd just like to add, if you look at slide 12, we are currently in a structural deficit if you include inflation and take out one-time money. So we've got some money left over in the bank. It's not recurring. And we've got $1 billion in projected inflation for the next biennium and $538 million for a structural balance. So we are in a structural deficit going forward unless we address spending and revenue. One-time money might get us through one more session where we're not taking this seriously, but we can't continue to do that, and we will set ourselves up for even more difficulties later if we don't get a handle on it this year.
Mr. Speaker, the administration's argument is we need to protect the general fund. One of the ways to do that is increase the gas tax. Your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely. It's a user fee, and if you look around the country, my understanding is in Ohio, when you have Republican Governor Mike DeWine proposing 18 cents in a gas tax, it is a user fee, and those who use the roads pay proportionally more. Also, we have found in 2008, when we overrode Tim Pawlenty to invest in transportation, that people knew what they were paying for, and they were pleased to be paying for it. We did not have a backlash against people who voted for the gas tax increase. That increased investment resulted in projects, a third lane on Highway 10 from Egret to Foley. We had substantial improvements in 694, and we don't all love road construction, but you could see the impact of those projects on easing congestion for people. So I think transportation is definitely a place we'll be looking.
And have you got the votes in your caucus to pass a bill off the floor?
We do.
About the idea of ending that transfer of general fund money to transportation projects and bringing that back in. I think that's what the governor was referencing when he said protecting the general fund. Does that sound?
Yeah, I think the governor's original budget had $450 million coming back to the general fund. And it's important to remember that the healthcare access fund going into deficit is also going to put a big strain on the general fund going forward. So without a gas tax or renewal of the provider tax or some replacement for it, we are going to be in a significant structural deficit in the general fund, which means less money for education, less money for taking care of seniors and people with disabilities. The consequences are very real, and we do have to address, we don't have to do these things. We do not have to take care of people when they are vulnerable. We don't have to have a world-class education system, but if we want to have that, we have to pay for it, and that's what we're going to be working to address.
Is there any place that you guys are looking to pare back spending?
Well, I have asked all of our fiscal chairs to look as they go through their budgets, what are the things that we're spending money on that we shouldn't be spending money on anymore. I think over the years, we've talked about concepts like zero-based budgeting. I do think every year that is our responsibility as legislators when we're putting together the finance bills, that the chairs of the committee really dive in deep with the commissioners and the staff at the departments to make sure that there is all the spending that we're doing on behalf of Minnesota's taxpayers is resulting in positive effects. And I'm hoping we can find some things to trim. There have to be some, right?
A lot of the governor's new revenue comes from his tax conformity bill. Where will yours come from? Do you have an idea about how you would raise new revenues to cover some of these priorities?
Well, Representative Marquardt will be putting that package together, but I think it's fair to say it will look fairly similar to the governor's proposals with probably some modifications.
So is this going big? Go big on bonding, go big on the gas tax? The governor came in, he's got a bit of swagger with his big election win. You guys got the majority. Is this the way you guys are going to be governing for the next couple of years now? Go big?
Well, I think Minnesotans deserve for us to put the best effort forward to make the state as strong as it can possibly be. And we know there are storm clouds on the economic horizon. So it's really our responsibility to put forward the best package to keep Minnesota strong, to keep it one of the top 10 performing states economically, high income per capita, high Fortune 500 per capita. So I just view it as a responsibility for us to do this job for Minnesotans.
We're also going to be taking on the issues that are important to Minnesotans, the things that affect their lives, and the challenges that we face are great. And this is no time for the status quo. And so we do think that it's important to be, to lay out what the costs are of having a world-class education system, a transportation system that works, affordable college and child care, how to have healthcare access that is affordable for people. These are real things that we can do. They will cost money, but pretending like half steps or little half measures will get us there, it doesn't solve the problem. And so we will, I think, be honest with Minnesotans about the cost of doing the things that they say they want us to do.
Based on the activity you've seen so far, are there particular areas of spending that you think or that you would advise might be looked at for spending cuts or to reverse the spending that they've already adopted?
No, I mean, that will be up to the chairs to look at as they construct their budgets. I was thinking you were going to work Thomas Pickering into another question.
I'm only good for one on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.